200 guests were left shocked at my sister's wedding when an unexpected twist was revealed. As the sun shone brightly on the lavishly decorated backyard, Sarah's heart raced in tune with the laughter and cheers surrounding her. 200 friends and family members were there to celebrate what was surely the happiest day of her sister Emily's life. Yet amidst the vibrant blooms and the excited chatter, a knot of anxiety twisted in Sarah's stomach. She took a deep breath, trying to drown out the shadows of their past, yelling for her attention the memories of their father's absence, haunting yet familiar. She had traded her dreams for the stability of their single mother's heart and the radiant joy of watching Emily take this monumental step, but she felt the weight of those sacrifices like an anchor dragging her down as she stood beside Emily, poised to witness her sister say, "I do." Another wave of dread crashed over her. What if their father showed up? She had carried the burden of that question for too long. The idea of him intruding on this day, a day that symbolized love and unity, was unbearable. But the truth was that fear had gnawed at her since she was a child, his absence an ever-present specter that left a trail of questions, unresolved anger, and a longing for answers that Sarah had buried deep. She would protect Emily from the truth, from that brutal wound, even as it threatened to erupt in the midst of their joyous celebrations. Suddenly, the double door swung open with an unnerving creak, and time seemed to still. Gasps echoed through the crowd as the towering figure of their father stepped into the sun-drenched space. Recognition hit Sarah like a punch to the gut. Every muscle in her body tensed, her breath momentarily hitching in her throat. How dare he show up here after all those years? Her heart conflicted between fury and an unsettling spark of hope. Was this really who he had transformed into? The weight of expectations crashed down on her, forcing her into a tight spot. Emily's happiness hung in the balance as their father strode forward, his charisma casting a spell over the guests who barely knew the truth. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The room fell deeply silent as he declared his intentions to start anew, to rekindle the bond he had shattered. Shockwaves rippled through the crowd while dread pooled in Sarah's stomach. She felt her heart racing, a tumult of emotions threatening to spill over. Should she confront him? Scream at him for the scars he had etched into their lives? Or was this a moment of choice for Emily, whose innocence still glimmered brightly, untainted by the truth? Her thoughts collided chaotically, half of her wanting to protect Emily with all her might, the other half feeling suffocated by the crushing desire to reveal every hidden piece of hurt that remained unaddressed. Why now? She thought, arms crossing defensively as she watched her sister's eager gaze shift between her and their father. The air thickened, crackling with tension. The impact of his arrival had transformed this sacred celebration into a confrontation, a battleground of love, loyalty, and betrayal. The moment hung in the air, heavy with possibilities, as Sarah clenched her jaw, the anchoring weight of unresolved feelings dragging her toward a precipice she couldn't avoid. Would she accept the toll of the past? Or would she fight for the family she had worked so hard to preserve? Every heartbeat marked another second of uncertainty and desperation, and her resolve wavered just enough to know that this was only the beginning. Sarah's fists clenched at her sides, the reality of the situation forcing a painful question to the forefront of her mind. How had they ended up here, at the junction where the past clawed its way back into the present? The whispers of disbelief and excitement enveloped her, but they felt distant, like echoes of a world where she no longer belonged. She had forged a life focused on stability, on safeguarding Emily from their father's abandonment. Could she face the father who had forsaken them now, as though years of hurt could be scrubbed away with a simple declaration of intent? Emily, blissfully unaware of the storm swirling just beneath the surface, turned to Sarah with wide, hopeful eyes. It was the innocence in her sister's expression that pierced through the tumult of emotions within Sarah. The choice was no longer just about confronting their father. It was about defending whatever remained of their sisterly bond, of the familial love that had blossomed in the cracks of their father's absence. A surge of protective instinct flooded through Sarah. She hadn't sacrificed her dreams just to watch their father waltz back into their lives, claiming the role he had abandoned. She wanted to shout, to strip away the veil of charm he offered, and to expose the raw wounds he left behind. Let us not forget the truth, she thought, her heart thunderous against the backdrop of soft wedding music. The speech floundered as audience members turned to each other in hushed discussions, their amusement transforming into concern. Though clenching her jaw, she recognized a growing anger within her, a fire ignited not just by their father's sudden appearance, but from a sense of betrayal. She had been the rock, the caretaker, the fortifier for Emily. Would she allow this man's actions to undermine her efforts? You don't get to rewrite history, she murmured to herself, resolving that she would not allow this moment to slip through her fingers. The weight of Emily's gaze intensified as their father continued to drone on about finding himself, and lengthy soul-searching. Each word was another jab at Sarah's commitment to protecting their family. Suddenly a decision crystallized in her mind. This wasn't just about confronting their father, it was also about claiming her own narrative. Inspired by a fierce surge of clarity, she stepped forward, breaking the unspoken barrier of hesitation, her heart racing. Drawing a sharp breath, she interrupted him. You left us, she said, her voice steady despite the internal chaos. You can't just expect everything to fall back into place. The crowd shifted, the collective breath held as her words sliced through the air. Silence draped over the gathering, shock evident on many faces. Yet there was an undercurrent of understanding from those who knew their story. This wasn't just an accusation. This was a reclamation, a declaration of her existence as more than just a sister, but as a survivor of their shared past. Why now after all these years? Sarah continued, allowing her frustration to spill over. Did you think showing up today would change anything? Did you think it would erase the years of pain you've caused? Her father flinched, a flicker of vulnerability crossing his face, but it quickly morphed into a mask of bravado. The tension was unbearable, the room holding its collective breath. The strength in Sarah surged, fueled by years of sacrifice and an insatiable need for closure. She had expected confrontation, but this was something far deeper. This was her awakening, heralding a resolve to no longer live in the shadows of their father's past mistakes. As the silence enveloped the room, she stared into her father's eyes, searching for answers yet finding only a mirror reflecting her own unyielding determination. A familiar voice echoed in her mind. The time had come to face not just him, but my own hidden truths. Would she learn from this moment, shaping it into the beginning of a newfound identity? The knot that had tightened within her began to unravel, revealing pathways she never anticipated. She could feel the stakes rising, and in that tension, she found a flicker of hope. Perhaps this confrontation was about more than the past. A possibility glimmered, but it came with a price. As she stood there, rooted in defiance and commitment, she realized the journey toward understanding who she truly was only just beginning, no longer defined by her family's actions, but a transformation guided by her choices. What would this choice lead her to? Her heart thrummed in anticipation of what lay ahead, a swirl of anxiety and excitement as realization set in. She could rewrite her own narrative, carving space for forgiveness but first demanding accountability. The moment bristled with tension, a cacophony of emotions spiraling into the tomorrow she yearned for. With her father's eyes boring into hers, Sarah could feel the weight of new beginnings bursting at the seams. The question loomed large. Would she find the strength to forgive or the courage to sever ties, forging a new path for herself and Emily? The future was wide open, and it beckoned her forward. The room buzzed with a mixture of shock and disbelief. The earlier jubilance of celebration now suffocated under the weight of Sarah's revelation. She could feel the eyes of the guests boring into her, judging yet understanding. Was she a villain for standing against their father, or a hero for protecting the only family she had left? The uncertainty ground against her resolve. Every heartbeat echoed the consequences of her choice, and in the ensuing silence, Sarah sensed an irreversible shift in the atmosphere. Emily's innocent trust flickered like a candle against a gust of wind, and Sarah's heart ached at the thought of her sister's delicate balance being disrupted by their father's return. As her father opened his mouth to speak, she anticipated his reinforcement of quaint apologies laden with indistinct promises. But this time she wasn't backing down. She shifted her gaze from him to Emily, Pausing to gauge her sister's reaction, her hopeful visage seemed to anchor Sarah amidst the chaos. "Emily," she began, committing to her sister first. "I know this is overwhelming, but we need to prioritize what's right for us. I understand you may feel differently, but I can't be silent anymore. We've built so much on our own." Her throat tightened, but she pressed on. "Dad chose to leave. We made it without him. I won't let him rewrite our story." Emily's eyes glistened with confusion, torn between her childhood dream of a family reunion and the reality of their fractured past. It was a look that pierced Sarah's heart, terror mingling with a deeply rooted urge to protect her. "Is it possible to forgive him, Sarah?" Emily's voice trembled, a whisper caught in the tension of the moment. It was a question they both grappled with silently for years, a personal moral dilemma brought to the forefront. Sarah's resolve wavered. Forgiveness felt like a double-edged sword, one where she could either heal or remain shackled to bitterness. "Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting," she finally replied, feeling the weight of her words. "It means letting go of what's holding us back." A sudden spark ignited in the audience. Whispers shifted from dread to intrigue. Her conviction began to gather momentum, catching the interest of those who had turned away from the confrontation. Each moment she spent confronting their father felt like a step deeper into her own truth, chipping away at the suffocating fear that had long kept her quiet. Their father, visibly rattled, attempted to regain control. "You don't understand." "I understand what?" Sarah interjected, her voice growing stronger. "The pain, the hurt, the years you're asking us to just overlook so you can be part of this picture? You don't get to grandfather your way back into our lives." The onlookers exchanged glances, some nodding in quiet agreement, feeling the pressure of her touch against their shared history. Sarah realized she wasn't just speaking for herself, she was a voice for many, including Emily, who had felt the absence of a patriarch in their lives. The hint of determination in Sarah morphed into something unrelenting, a force that diverted her focus from the crowd back to her father. "This isn't about you, it never was. It's about us moving forward together on our terms." Suddenly, the moment crystallized into a profound realization. She wasn't merely defending Emily. She was discovering her own strength and agency. It was a revelation of hidden capabilities she had yet to fully embrace. Yet, as the gravity of the situation settled, a piercing thought stabbed at her consciousness. Had she truly broken free from the shackles of her father's actions? Or was this confrontation merely a temporary reprieve, a fleeting taste of liberation that could dissipate just as quickly as it ignited? Pressure mounted with each tick of the clock. Sarah needed to decide, not just for her own sake but for Emily's future too. Would she remain a fortress built on past hurts, or summon the courage to build a new beginning? The intricacies of forgiveness and reclamation tangled with her identity, and she swallowed hard. Against the swell of emotions as the storm inside her stirred, she knew it was time to confront not only her father but the aching parts of herself that longed for justice, for clarity. The next step in her journey loomed before her, demanding resolution. With a deep breath, she shifted her stance and locked eyes with her father once more. The question hung like a pendulum, swaying between confrontation and compassion. All she could think was, what did healing truly look like? And could she find it with or without him? The potential for clarity and a new narrative pulsed like a heartbeat, drawing her deeper into uncertainty and potential simultaneously. With this confrontation, life as she knew it would change. Would she have the courage to embrace that change, or would she falter? The moment was ripe with possibility, teetering on the brink of transformation. As her resolve solidified, the tension in the air thickened. Emerging from the chaos came the realization. The answer she sought lay not in her father's hands, but in her own. And so she braced herself, ready to discover not only the truth about her father but the depths of her own fortitude. Would she stand strong in the face of adversity, or would the past once again bind her? Sarah's heart raced as the weight of her defiance lingered in the air. She sensed the combination of shock and curiosity swirling among the guests, a murmur of hushed conversations punctuating the tension. Each voice seemed to echo the doubts she carried within herself. Had she truly taken the right step in confronting her father? Yet, that moment of clarity sparked a flicker of courage. Instead of backing down, she leaned into the uncertainty. "Dad," Sarah said, her voice firm but steady, "this is about choice. You chose to leave. You chose to ignore us. Before you ask for our forgiveness, acknowledge the pain your absence caused. The consequences of your actions have not just vanished with your return. Emily's eyes widened, uncertainty mixed with admiration. The flicker of her trust had shifted into a glimmer of belief not only in Sarah but perhaps in the possibility of reclaiming their narrative. As her father faltered, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water, it occurred to Sarah that this was not just a confrontation but an unveiling of a different version of herself. No longer was she just Emily's protector. She was becoming an architect of her own destiny, embracing the strength she had nurtured over the years. That realization felt almost electric, igniting a sense of newfound agency. "Tell me," she pressed, "why now? What is it that has brought you back here to this moment? What about us do you believe warrants your re-entry into our lives?" The audience held their breath, captivated by the unfolding drama, as Sarah's query not only demanded answers from her father, but also compelled her to dig deeper into her own motives. What did she truly want, closure or an ironclad distance from the wounds of her past? "I missed you both," her father finally stammered, tears glistening in his eyes. "I made mistakes, but I never stopped thinking about you." Again a dark cloud loomed within her. Did he really care? Or was it simply guilt manifesting with all the charm he could muster? "That's just it, Dad. Caring is not merely about thoughts. It involves actions, sacrifices, being present. You've denied us that privilege your entire life." The realization was dawning. It wasn't just her father in the spotlight. It was her quest for honesty amidst a sea of compromises and misunderstandings. The notion of grappling with ideals of love and validation began to consume her. She wasn't just standing tall against him. She was standing tall for herself, grappling with her place in their shared history. As the silence stretched, Sarah realized the need for resolution had never been more pivotal. Every decision she made now would ripple through their lives, affecting her sister's burgeoning perception of trust. "I need you to understand," she continued with steadier breath. "I don't want to erase you from our lives, but I won't allow your return to rewrite our story without gratitude and transparency about what's been lost." Each powerful statement stirred a profound internal introspection. The road ahead curved and twisted, revealing doubts but also potential. If she truly sought healing, she must confront the multitude of emotions fatherhood had tangled within her: hurt, betrayal, but also hope. Was it time to take the next step towards reconciling with that hope, or was it too early? Emily reached out, placing her hand on Sarah's shoulder. Her encouragement felt like a warm balm on an open wound. This invitation to unite in courage countered the alienation that had brewed between them for too long. And in this moment of solidarity, Sarah felt her confidence solidify. Yes, the uncomfortable, thorny path of reclaiming agency began with confrontation, but it morphed into an opportunity for understanding. Healing would never arrive neatly packaged, but would instead demand relentless pursuit. "How do we move forward?" she asked, knowing that seeking that direction would challenge not only her father's intentions but also her capacity to navigate the unknown. As the air thickened with unresolved tension, Sarah confronted her father one last time, firm yet softened by the bonds of family. "I want clarity for us, for Emily. If you truly wish to join us, you need to show that you can be trusted moving forward." That final assertion echoed, reverberating through her own consciousness, racing through the room like a current. She intended to sculpt her own identity from the debris of their shared past, resisting the temptation to become a mere reflection of her father's desires. With every exchange she transformed, negotiating her way through wounds toward potential healing. The question loomed heavy: could she really change the trajectory of not just her life, but Emily's too? And if their father faltered once again, falling back into old patterns, would she possess the fortitude required to stand firm in her resolve, not just as a sister but as an individual forging her own path? But just as an answer began to form in her mind, the shrill ring of the doorbell jolted her back to reality. The world outside beckoned, grounded in reality, promising unforeseen challenges that could shake the fragile foundation she was building. With a deep breath, she glanced at Emily, her heart racing again. What awaited them beyond the threshold? The question settled in her mind, thick with urgency, inviting exploration. Sarah hesitated, staring at the front door as if it were a portal to an unknown world. Each ring of the bell echoed the tumult of her internal conflict. What could possibly await them out there? A sense of foreboding mingled with her burgeoning conviction. She knew they had the power to take control of this moment, to confront whatever lay ahead. With a swift motion that surprised even herself, Sarah opened the door. A gust of wind swept through, carrying with it the scent of spring and freedom. The world beyond her father's presence was ripe with opportunities yet to be explored. Standing at the threshold were two figures, one an elegantly dressed woman with dark hair, and the other, a tall man with an air of quiet authority. Their expressions were a mix of confusion and concern, not unlike her own. "Sarah?" the woman asked. Her voice was tinged with familiarity. "It's been so long." The name ignited a spark of recognition. It was Jessica, a childhood friend, fallen out of touch since college. "Jessica, what are you doing here?" she exclaimed, surprised at the unexpected reunion when she was so consumed by her family's turmoil. "Can we talk?" Jessica glanced past Sarah into the house, where the tension still hung thick. Her eyes flickered with empathy and curiosity, sensing the drama that had just unfolded. "Now?" Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. Was this what she needed? A diversion from the chaos swirling inside? "Yes, now," Jessica insisted softly but assertively. "I know you're in the middle of something intense, but I think I can help." Sarah stole a glance at Emily, whose wide eyes mirrored her own uncertainty. Jessica was no coincidence. Perhaps she was the ally Sarah didn't know she needed. She stepped aside, allowing them entry. As the trio retreated to a quieter corner of the room, Jessica wasted no time. "I've been keeping tabs on you, Sarah. I've seen your work, your passion for advocacy, and I believe you have an opportunity here to leverage your family's situation." The conversation slid effortlessly into a dialogue about Sarah's advocacy work, her passion for crafting narratives that mattered not just to her, but to others too. Jessica believed there was potential for Sarah to channel her struggle into a broader platform. You could become a voice for others who face similar circumstances, those battling the scars of broken relationships. The idea resonated, sending a thrill through her, an electric jolt of purpose. Suddenly it was more than just her father and sister at stake. It was about their story transforming into something greater. "But how?" she questioned, skepticism lacing her words. "You're already halfway there," Jessica replied, her confidence unwavering. "You've started the conversation today, you've stirred emotions that all of us feel but rarely express. Use that. Create a blog, start a podcast. Gather voices of others who have experienced what you have." As Jessica spoke, each word broadened Sarah's perspective. It was not just about repairing her familial bond, but also about weaving together the experiences of others, about building a community of shared pain and resilience. The thought ignited new ambition within her. "And your father," Jessica continued, "if he is truly willing to change, he might just open up about his own struggles. Imagine how that can shift your narrative." Sarah's mind spun. Could she truly turn this mountain of conflict into a pyramid of strength? She felt an urge to speak, an urge that went beyond her father and the isolation they had endured. But what if he doesn't want to be honest? What if this is just one more empty apology? Jessica met her gaze directly. "That uncertainty is what makes it real. You're not just reclaiming your story. You're crafting a future that invites healing for you and for others. This isn't about erasing what has happened but using it." A rustle of movement from Emily reminded Sarah of her sister's presence, her unwavering support, and the tumult of emotions they shared. This new path flickered like a beacon in the chaos of her conflict, blending her struggle with purpose. But just as Sarah began to embrace the promise of potential, the door swung open again. This time it was her father, stepping into the room with a palpable weight behind him. He looked drawn and regretful, but there was determination glinting in his eyes. "Sarah," he began, voice trembling, "I need to talk to you properly this time." As she locked eyes with him, the swirl of emotions surged. Would she be able to set aside her doubts and let this new opportunity for healing unfold? But just as questions pressed hard against her thoughts, she felt something shift, a surge of strength, a clear sense of direction. Sarah's heart raced with the knowledge that this was not just an encounter of the past, but a potential turning point. How would she confront this new challenge, laced with possibility yet heavy with uncertainty? The weight of her decision hung in the air, invoking an urgency that promised transformation. With the door now wide open, the world outside called her forth, drenched in the complexities of healing. Where would this journey take them next? The question lodged itself deep within, begging exploration and resolution. Sarah felt the room constrict around her as her father marched toward her, eyes filled with an intensity she hadn't seen for years. This wasn't just a casual conversation. It felt like a high-stakes negotiation where her heart still raw from years of hurt would be laid bare. "Can we step outside?" he asked, his voice gravelly but urgent. She exchanged a glance with Jessica, who nodded subtly, a silent encouragement that fortified Sarah's resolve. This was her moment to reshape everything, to explore the uncertainties, the vulnerabilities, and perhaps massage truths that could lead to deeper understanding. "Okay," she replied, her own voice steadier than she felt. The trio walked into the backyard, where the scent of blooming lilacs brushed against them like a comfort only nature could provide. The sky was startlingly bright, contrasting with the darkness of their shared history. "Sarah, I know I haven't been the father you needed," he began, hands shoved deep in his pockets, the weight of weighty words lingering in the air. "It's been hard. I can't expect you to forgive me right away, but I want to try." His admission struck her with a mix of surprise and skepticism. Years of neglect and dismissive behavior had built a fortress around her heart, and though a part of her wanted to dismantle it in that moment, another part hesitated. "Why now?" she questioned, her voice taut with unresolved resentment. "What has changed?" "I've done a lot of thinking during these past months. Your sister. She has been brave enough to confront me, and I've recognized that ignoring my past doesn't make it go away. I'm ready to confront my demons and try to make sense of them, to make sense of us." The sincerity in his eyes resonated deep within Sarah, yet doubt clung to her like a shadow. Could she trust this transformation? "I don't want to be disappointed again," she admitted, her voice raw yet resolute. "How do I know this isn't just another empty promise?" "Actions speak louder than words," he replied, a flicker of defiance igniting within him. "I'll show you. I'm willing to share everything, the struggles, the pain, the reasons I became what I did. But it will take time." Time. The word echoed ominously. In the past, every promise had been measured in apologies, never fulfilled. "What exactly do you want from me?" she pressed, feeling the weight of expectations shift on her shoulders. This conversation wasn't simply about closure, it seemed to thaw her instincts for self-protection. "I want us to rebuild," he said simply. "But I understand I can't push you. You're on your own path and I respect that." The loose soil beneath her feet felt like shifting sands as she considered her next move. Sarah had always yearned for a father, someone who understood her depth and would celebrate her ambitions. Yet, how could she welcome someone who had hurt her repeatedly? Just then she remembered Jessica's words. Perhaps her pain could transform into something constructive, something that could evangelize healing not just for her, but for countless others. "Okay," Sarah tentatively said, feeling her chest tighten. "Let us talk. But I need to know you'll be open and honest. No more avoidance." "Absolutely," he affirmed, the tension between them faltering. With the acknowledgement clinging to the air, Sarah felt newfound purpose stir within her. A fragile yet flickering hope ignited. Was this truly a new beginning? Could she guide the dialogues of healing, both within her family and herself? Words began to tumble through her mind: a blog, a podcast, a platform where shared stories could thrive. As those thoughts churned inside her, she glanced at Jessica, who stood listening thoughtfully, gauging the atmosphere, ready to support any direction Sarah chose. But just as a flicker of resolve brightened her mind, another thought slipped in, darker yet compelling. What if her father's confession stirred feelings she wasn't prepared for? What truths could surface that might not only surprise her but threaten everything she had built to protect herself? A complex tapestry of emotions threatened to unravel her newfound strength as she confronted not just her father's past, but her own intertwined with it. The need for clarity screamed more insistently than ever as she exhaled slowly. The shadows loomed ominously, promising both revelation and upheaval. What secrets would their past reveal? And could they really transform their relationship? Sarah realized each conversation would delve deeper, intertwining pain and hope, leading them into unknown territories. Would she have the courage to face these truths head-on? The soft rustle of lilac leaves offered an almost surreal backdrop as Sarah and her father stood just a few feet apart, the space between them charged with unspoken words and unprocessed emotions. The ground felt uneven beneath her feet, a reminder of the precariousness of their situation. She was shifting from daughter to negotiator, and as she prepared to voice her feelings, she felt the weight of her own expectations pressing down on her. "Okay," she finally said, her voice slightly firmer than before. "Tell me about your struggles. What should I know?" He hesitated, casting his eyes briefly to the ground, as if searching for strength in the earth beneath them. "When your mother left, it shattered me. I turned to drinking to avoid the grief. I didn't realize then the impact it had on you and Jessica. I was selfish, lost in my own pain." The confession hung in the air like a fog, oppressive yet revealing. She struggled to control the storm of emotions surging within her. For years, she had crafted a narrative around his shortcomings, a narrative that allowed her to compartmentalize her pain into a neat box labeled father. It was a construct that screamed for attention yet begged for silence. "So much hurt," she said quietly, both validating years of anguish and questioning the very foundation of her upbringing. "I was blind to the way I was affecting you both, too focused on my own escape," he admitted, his voice thick with remorse. "I didn't show you how to confront your own battles. I only taught you how to suffer in silence." The truth pierced through her defenses like a shard of glass. It teetered on both sides, blame and liberation. She wanted desperately to respond, to push back against the ache of his honesty, but instead she found herself reflecting on her own pain. She had often equated silence with strength, mistaking her internal struggles for irrelevant noise. Taking a steadying breath, Sarah articulated the shift she felt budding in her soul. "This can't just be about you, though. What about Jessica and me? We need to confront your absence, not just accept your apologies." The words felt empowering, yet terrifying. Sarah could sense the change in her father as he shifted uncomfortably. "You're right," he acknowledged, a hint of fear reflecting in his eyes. "How do I change that narrative? How do I make amends?" The question was a mirror reflecting back her own fears. Could she guide this conversation to yield something constructive? Could she transform anger into dialogue? "It starts with honesty," Sarah proposed, feeling an urgency to break the cycle not just for him but for herself too. "We need to confront the years of silence, our shared memories. I want to understand why you failed us, and I also need to face my pain. Can we do that?" His gaze turned contemplative, the vulnerability exposing layers of a man who had often simplified his own struggle into vague excuses. "Yes, I'll do anything. I want to help you both heal, even if it means diving into the darkest corners I'd rather avoid." The prospect both thrilled and terrified her. It was a blind leap into the abyss, foreshadowing confrontations that could tear through the carefully constructed fabric of their relationship. But it was also a chance to redefine their roles, father and daughter transforming into allies. With each step into this new territory, she sensed the potential for shared healing. "I want to document this journey," Sarah suggested, her mind sparking with ideas. "What if we create something together? A blog where we can unpack our experiences? It might help others too." His nod was hesitant but present, a flicker of encouragement amidst uncertainty. They could become something entirely new, not just a fragmented family, but a beacon for those facing generational wounds. But as she wrestled with this burgeoning sense of purpose, a chilling thought cut through her enthusiasm. What if the truths they uncovered were more than she had anticipated? What if her father faced demons that would only deepen the rift between them? That darkness loomed ominously promising. Revelations that could shatter everything. The prospect of revealing long-buried secrets surged forward, as they each took tentative steps towards an uncertain horizon. Would they emerge whole or fractured? As they prepared to dive deeper into their shared history, Sarah felt the weight of that impending truth pressing against her, drastically releasing her tiny flicker of hope into an overwhelming sea of doubt. Would confronting the darkness finally lead to the light they both craved? And what if some of those truths were not meant to be unearthed? The air crackled with tension as they stepped back into the house, a space that had once felt warm but now bore the chilly shadows of unspoken truths. Sarah felt the weight of potential revelations pressing upon her shoulders like a storm cloud, ready to unleash its contents. She had envisioned their conversation scripting moments of understanding, yet now she stood before her father, grappling with the enormity of their next steps. "Where do we start?" she asked, her voice threading through the silence like a lifeline. The walls echoed back, holding their memories tightly, as if the house itself was part of the stifling past they needed to confront. Maybe with the last time I really talked to your mother, he said slowly, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his tone. Before she left. His admission struck her profoundly. That moment held both the weight of history and a possibility that might reshape their future. Okay, she replied, surprised by the firmness in her voice. What did you discuss? What were the signs? He closed his eyes, gathering his thoughts, and she could see the effort it took to open such painful doors. We argued. I was drunk and I said things I didn't mean. It spiraled until the only option seemed to be locking her out of my life. I thought it was protecting myself. How did you think that would help? There was an edge to her question, a needle of anger piercing through the morose atmosphere. You protected yourself by pushing her away? We all suffered because of your decision. The accusation stung, but it was necessary. I know, he replied gently, the remorse palpable in his voice. You're right. My pain blinded me. I didn't think about the consequences. Suddenly, the room felt smaller, and Sarah had to suppress the urge to flee. She wasn't just facing her father. She was staring into the abyss of how his actions influenced her own life, her relationships, her choices, her fears. Did she also seek refuge in silence and avoidance? What about me? What did I learn from watching you? She questioned herself, intensifying her gaze to meet his. I've worked so hard to hide my struggles, thinking they were weaknesses. You taught me that. Now I need to unlearn that. His expression shifted, revealing a flicker of recognition. You can't break free from my mistakes unless you confront them, Sarah. I'm here to help you rebuild. With those words, a sliver of hope stabbed through her apprehension. Here was an opportunity to rewrite her narrative, if only she could gather the strength. Let us start writing, she suggested, her mind racing with the possibilities. Let us write about this, the good, the bad, everything. It's not just for others. It's a way for us to untangle this mess. His eyes lit slightly, but doubt loomed just behind them. What if our writing exposes things we aren't ready for? What if it tears us apart instead? The potential risk hovered above them, a weight that could crush their budding alliance. But the prospect of facing those fears was a mobilizing force. We can't let fear dictate our growth. If we uncover truths that scare us, we can handle them together. We're partnering in this, right? A long pause ensued, the atmosphere thick with unspoken fears and hopes. Slowly he nodded. Together they could face the painful truths that haunted them, perhaps even scarier than the secrets hidden within those old shadows. Yet, in the recesses of her mind, an unsettling feeling lingered. What if the next revelation turned their bonding into a shattering of everything they thought they knew? What if his darkest secrets buried deep within him were not just painful memories but harmful truths that could fracture their bond irreparably? Sarah steeled herself, aware that the journey ahead would test their resolve, both personally and professionally. Would their newfound alliance withstand the trials ahead? Would the act of sharing their truths build the structures of healing, or would it expose wounds they were ill-equipped to handle? The screen glimmered with the new blog title flashing across her mind. Redefining Us. It sparked excitement, tinged with trepidation. She took a deep breath, aware that they now stood before an uncharted path, and the moment to plunge into their exploration had arrived. Would they rise stronger? Or was there a deeper chasm waiting to swallow them whole? The answer began to weave itself into the fabric of the words yet to be written, and together they would confront whatever truths awaited. The house settled around them, the air heavy with expectation. Sarah felt her heartbeat quicken, underscoring a burgeoning resolve. They had taken the first step, but now the real work loomed ahead, a daunting combination of reflection and confrontation. She sat at the small wooden desk, her fingers poised over the keyboard, a blank document waiting to be filled with the narrative of their lives. Let us begin, she said firmly, directing her gaze at her father, who had retreated into a contemplative silence. Let us capture the moments, the truth that led us here, she added, hoping to draw him out of his reverie. He nodded slowly. What if I can't express everything? What if I don't recall it all? That's okay, Sarah assured him. This isn't about perfection. It's about authenticity. We can't change what happened, but we can change how we perceive it. Her voice steadied him, a tether to the possibility of breakthrough. He exhaled, the tension in his shoulders dropping a fraction. I want to share, but some things have always felt like secrets for a reason. Then let us outline what those secrets are, she suggested, feeling a mixture of fear and thrill rush through her. Every secret was a thread that, once pulled, could unravel the entire tapestry of their lives. What's the worst thing hidden in there? He leaned forward, the shadow of recollection crossing his face. I never told your mother about the money troubles. I thought if I kept it from her it would protect her. Protecting her from what? You only piled on the burden, she urged, her voice rising slightly. Wouldn't it have been better to face it together? As he reflected, a flicker of realization crossed his eyes, a glimpse of the pattern of avoidance that had dictated his past. I didn't see it that way, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. I thought I had to be the strong one. Strength isn't about hiding the truth. It's about confronting it, no matter how painful. Sarah felt the weight of her own struggles resurface as she spoke. The fear of vulnerability loomed just as large for her, a sentiment she had avoided for too long. He paused, contemplating her words. I buried so many feelings. Even now, I don't want to drag you into my darkness. But I'm already in it. Sarah interrupted, her frustration mounting. Your darkness is my darkness. You think I haven't felt the weight of your choices? We can't lighten the load unless we share it. Let us be brave together. In that moment, something shifted between them. A collective understanding formed, their vulnerabilities bridging the distance that had grown over the years. They were no longer separate beings, father and daughter navigating a broken past. They were a team in this endeavor of healing, each complementing the other's gaps in courage. Let us list the moments, she proposed, her heart racing with possibility. The most pivotal moments that shaped who we are today, both good and bad. As they began to brainstorm, she felt a rush of empowerment wash over her. Here was an unexpected opportunity for her own psychological unearthing. Each moment they crafted could be a stepping stone toward understanding her own tendencies toward silence and submissiveness. Let us start with the day I fell in love with writing, Sarah shared, a slight smile breaking through her angst. When I first realized my voice mattered. And I'll write about the day I lost my job, he countered, a newfound determination lighting up his eyes. Together they drafted a list, toggling between catharsis and fear, creating a roadmap of their emotional landscape, each revelation unlocking a door previously thought barred. But as the discussions deepened, the buried secrets began to pull at Sarah's own past, the ghosts connecting them through a complex web of choices and consequences. But the more they confronted, the louder the questions grew in her mind. What if they uncovered a truth so profound it could destroy the fragile foundation of their renewed bond? Could she handle the reality that came along with the revelations? I believe facing these truths will empower us, she reassured herself, a mantra to balance her rising anxiety. The intimacy of their vulnerability cast a promising light over what lay ahead. Yet as the thoughts raced through her mind, a gnawing uncertainty clung to her. The walls had absorbed so much pain. Would they truly be able to shift the paradigm? The task felt both exhilarating and terrifying. As the outline of their stories lingered in the air, she knew they stood on the precipice of transformation. Maybe this change could forge not just a blog but a whole new way of living. But what if the truths they faced weren't only painful but also unforgivable? The question hung there like a specter at the end of a long hall, waiting to be confronted. Would they be brave enough to walk into that darkness? The days turned into weeks as Sarah and her father delved deeper into their memories, shifting and knitting together their fragmented narratives. Each session felt like unearthing a treasure trove of hurts and hopes, an excavation of the self that illuminated who they were rather than the shadows they'd been hiding in. The act of sharing became a salve rather than a burden. They were rewriting the old story, and this time there was intention behind their words. With each session, the intimacy between them grew. They began crafting a blog titled Redefining Us, a space dedicated not just to their journey, but to the collective healing of anyone who had faced the ravages of neglect. Sarah felt the powerful momentum of purpose behind their struggle, a channeling of vulnerability into something transformative that could inspire others. It was as if her father's courage to confront the past sparked the very courage within her that had long lain dormant. Sarah had always positioned herself as the protector, the caretaker for Emily. Yet, the deeper she traveled into her father's story and her own wounds, the more she realized that her role wasn't limited to that solitary definition. She was a survivor, an advocate of healing, and her voice was not just a whisper but a bold declaration to be heard. Those realizations surged like flames, burning away the last remnants of self-doubt. Meanwhile, Emily had been observing the burgeoning connection between them, her trust in Sarah blossoming as she witnessed the maturation of their relationship. One evening, as they gathered for dinner, Emily spoke up. "You've changed, Sarah." The simple statement wrapped around Sarah, settling like a warm blanket. "You're no longer the person who feels obligated to shield me from the past. You're becoming someone who embraces it, so we can create a better future together." Emily's words struck a profound chord. Sarah hadn't just transformed personally. She was reclaiming her rightful place, pioneering a path that extended beyond protecting her sister. It was empowering, as if she had crossed a river of doubt and emerged on the other side, standing tall and resolute. The recognition she craved didn't need to come from her father or the outside world. It existed within her as she built a scaffold for herself, one brick at a time. Their blog garnered traction, resonating with others who felt the familiar sting of unresolved familial relationships. They received messages daily, people thanking them for their bravery, sharing their own stories of loss, courage, and transformation. It felt audacious to believe that their story could act as a beacon, illuminating shadows for someone else. The realization solidified within Sarah that their words mattered. They could indeed be a lifeline for many seeking to navigate their own complexities. One sunny afternoon, Sarah received an email from an esteemed online publication. They had come across her blog and wanted to feature her story along with her father's insights on personal growth and reconciliation. This recognition felt like a culmination of all she had fiercely fought for, the acknowledgement of her journey spinning into a larger narrative that could influence others while affirming her own growth. Staring at the screen, she inhaled deeply, affirming her readiness to step into this new role not just as a daughter seeking closure but as a pioneer of her own destiny, a voice clamoring for transformation amid the echoes of her past. That day, she also envisioned a future where she would share her story on public platforms, blending her passion for writing and advocacy toward a greater cause. The journey was not over. There would still be moments of uncertainty. She stood at a crossroads every day, confronting fears that would rise from time to time. But there was a solid foundation now, strengthened by engagement and reconciliation. She felt empowered, transformed from the anchor of her past into a vessel of hope. On her way to the publication's office for the first of many talks, she reflected on how far they had come. The confrontation that had felt insurmountable had birthed a dynamic connection. She and her father could navigate their past together, and now she could look forward to a future escape from its grip. As she approached the interview space, a surge of confidence coursed through her. She grasped the handle of the door, her heart steady, embodying a self that aligned with hope and authenticity. Sarah had evolved. She was no longer the wounded daughter confined to silence but an advocate, a writer, and a woman ready to conquer whatever lay ahead without hesitation. This moment wasn't merely the end of a chapter. It was the vibrant gateway to her defined new beginning, an embodiment of triumph and personal growth. With one deep breath, she turned the handle, stepping into the light of new possibilities, a future she was determined to shape on her own terms. The moment had arrived for Sarah to step fully into her narrative. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.